This is a demonstration of a high-speed workflow going from the design phase in a project to the construction documents phase. What I have is a page of viewport sections that were made from a three-dimensional model. If you're like a lot of firms, you create a design model, a 3D model of the building, and from that we extract elevations and sections and plans. And that model can even be remote. This drawing, if you look in the References tab, it references the plan, the CD plan, which is a 3D model. That reference comes into a design layer, and there's the building model. You're simply looking at it in top plan. And from that, we generate section viewports or elevations or other drawings. But as you move forward in your project, you may find that using this method is too cumbersome to move forward beyond this point because your model is getting too complicated or the project is taking too long to regenerate the views, or you may not want to build that level of detail into your model. Our firm uses the Vectorworks 3D modeling methodology to create what we call the superstructure of the building, the major walls and floors and roofs and forms, and then we fill in the rest of it. But as you transition to construction documents, you may decide that since there are not going to be any more major changes to the building, you'd like to convert these to a straightforward, traditional, two-dimensional document, which is no longer linked to your 3D model for whatever reasons you have. Ours is for speed and convenience. Again, we have multiple people working on the project. So what you see here, as I said, are these section viewports, and we're going to see a way to convert them to 2D without losing a lot of our information. Now, as I mentioned, we typically do just the superstructure in 3D, and then as you'll see, in the viewport itself, we're putting text, we're putting labels, we're putting callouts, and we also may put some polygons in there. We use the bucket tool to make a quick polygon rather than modeling some things and texturing some things in 3D. We're just using an image fill here to get what we need, and maybe we're drawing a fill for the floor or something like that. But we don't want to lose all this information when we convert to 2D. So here's a method for doing that. Now, first of all, I'll demonstrate with just this one section. I'm going to option drag a copy of the viewport, and you may not be aware, but you can take any viewport and decompose it, as it were. There's a command that says modify, convert, and in this case, I'm going to convert to lines. Now, you'll notice, again, I've lost all my notes and things like that, but not to worry. Right now, it is a group. And being on a sheet layer, it's at 1:1. Now I'm going to cut this object, and then I'm going to go to my design layer, my section base. Now I have set this up at 1/8 inch scale, and if you'll recall, my viewport, my section viewports were at a scale of 3/16, and the factor is 1:64. So when I come out of a 1:1 sheet layer and I go to a design layer and I paste that in, it's very small. Now all I have to do is simply go to modify scale object, and if you recall, the factor was 64. Now it is correctly scaled on this 1/8 inch layer. All right, very good. And as a side note, from this point, this is now our physical 2D drawing. There's two methods you can take. One, you can go into this group and you can begin to patch and fix all of the various line weights. Sometimes there's a line on top of lines and things like that, and you're going to have to fix all that and patch it up, but it's a fairly quick cleanup. Or the other method, which we use sometimes, is simply to change all of the line work to, say, a light blue or a light green, and use this as a trace template to recreate a document. But in any event, let's move back to our example, all right? And this works the same for any of the above. Sheet layer, I'm going to create a new viewport of the two-dimensional section that I just created. So I'll say View, Create Viewport, and it's going to go on this sheet layer that I'm working on. I need to make sure I select the design layer that I want, make sure I have the classes that I want. It's going to be at a scale of 3/16 like my other drawings, and there is my viewport. So this is a two-dimensional line drawing. This is a drawing created from a three-dimensional model. I'm wanting to divorce from the model. So now it's just a simple matter of going into this viewport, select all, cut those are the items that I added to that viewport, and I'll go into this viewport and I'll paste those in, and I'll find a common point to line up and snap those to each other, and that's got it. And so now I've got a viewport based on a two-dimensional drawing, and I can delete this viewport. Now after I repeat that with the other three section viewports, I could then go to my resource palette and disconnect, delete the connection to the 3D plan, and I could delete the reference viewport from the three-dimensional base model, and I would then have a standalone document to continue working, and it would no longer have to reference and update and re-render the viewports.